Hey guys, welcome back to Ceramic Pros mini series Detailing 101. Today we're going to do the 4th episode and it's going to be all about polishing. The first thing we're going to dive into here is the tools. So there's really two main types of polishing tools. There's a rotary polisher and there's a dual action polisher. A rotary polisher simply spins in one direction and just grinds away. The dual action polisher actually rotates and oscillates. Dual action, two movements. So if you look at with the pad on here, and then we turn the tool on, you can actually see that oscillation effect. It's a really cool look. So what's the benefits of that? The benefits of it is, instead of just grinding away at the paint to remove defects, these really do an excellent job by also being more gentle. So it's more of a massaging to remove defects than a grinding. So you'll see here we have 4 tools. They all work in the same way by having 2 actions. This one is called a 21 millimeter. What that means is it has a 6-inch backing plate and it oscillates 21 millimeters from center as it works. This one is a 5-inch backing plate. It's called a 15, and this one rotates 15 millimeters from center. And this one is a 3-inch and it rotates 8 millimeters from center. And then we have the micro 1-inch polisher. So why so many sizes? So the fact of the matter is defects are removed by friction and constantly rubbing over the surface. A lot of times you could do that by hand, but it might take you forever. You could do it with a 1-inch tool. It'll take you a long time. So for removing heavy defects over a large area, you're going to want to use the large throw machine. You can work into a little bit tighter areas using the smaller and smaller tools. So for this purpose, we're going to demonstrate on the doors. We're going to show you the big machine so it's easiest to see. So not only do these tools have varying degrees of oscillation, but they all have a trigger speed as well. So they all run from 1 to 6. So the faster the tool is going, the faster it oscillates, the more heat and more friction, therefore the more cutting. And again, they all have that. So after we figure out which tool we're going to use, at what speed we're going to run it, then we start to talk about what pads and what buffing liquids we'll use. As you can see, we have basically the same pads, just different sizes. And color-coded here for how aggressive or how hard they will cut the paint. This one's very aggressive. It will remove defects very fast. It's also kind of dangerous and not good in the hands of a consumer. This is a hybrid wool microfiber. And then we have a true microfiber pad, nice and soft like a microfiber. This is designed to cut the paint very hard as well. And actually, we do have a series here where there's a yellow foam pad in every size. It's going to be pretty dense, pretty thick, pretty hard. And then you move down to actually the orange pad, which will be a little bit softer. This you'll get into more polishing the paint and removing, honestly, the damage done by these. And when I say damage, what that means is to remove heavy scratches, you kind of need to cut the paint pretty hard. This will leave behind a lot of marring. And as you move down the list, you remove the marring that you did on your own. And then we have an ultra soft black pad. And then for our ceramic row installations, there's actually one more even finer red pad. So now you see that there's a lot of different types of pads for different purposes. And then you have to choose which liquid you will use to cut the paint. So in the past, there was buffing liquids that had basically grit, and you could put the liquid on your fingers and feel how gritty they were. Now, the science is much better, and we use what's called a diminishing abrasive. So no matter what liquid we're using, we always choose a diminishing abrasive. And the reason for that is it starts to cut immediately, but as you use it, the abrasives break down and it actually makes the process much more gentle and you're able to refine the paint using less steps. So, boy, we got a lot of choices between liquids, pads, machines. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how to choose which, why, when, and then how to operate the tool. So let's take you over to the car. So you may be able to see some scratches here on the paint. And today, my objective is to remove these scratches, polish the paint, and then ultimately put a nice protection back on it. So I'm choosing to remove those scratches, a 21 millimeter, along with our heavy cutting purple pad. And then I'm going to start using the Americana 1500 diminishing abrasive. One cool thing I didn't mention earlier is these pads are really specially designed to work with this tool, and they have these holes in them, which is a signature to this particular pad. The reason for the holes is it helps you line up with the tool, and it helps keep airflow running through the backing plate and through the pad, keeping the pad cool, so you're cutting without overheating the surface. In our case, typically, you'd use much less product than this, but when first starting, you want to prime the pad. Then I always start on speed number 1. I always put the machine perfectly flat and spread the product out nice and even. So the reason you want it spread even before you start is if you simply go ahead and put the machine on here, you'll actually be cutting harder when you begin than by the time you get to here, because the product diminishes as you use it. I'm focusing on these main scratches here, so I'm going to go ahead and dial the machine up to, let's say, 3 to start. In most cases, 4 passes, as I just did there, is usually enough to remove surface scratches caused by washing the vehicle or improper washing or running it through a car wash. So I like to take a look at my work. You can see I started to have an impact here and it's nice and shiny, but that's just the first pass. So because I have some deeper scratches there that I'm trying to solve, I'm going to go ahead and add some more liquid. And again, rub it on the surface. There's a few characteristics of the machine that are important to note. One is pad angle, meaning if I operate the machine like this, I'm going to have different degrees of cutting. In most cases, you want to have it perfectly flat. The second is the speed of the machine, the speed the tool runs. The third is how hard I push down on the tool. And lastly is what's called arm speed. Arm speed is the time it takes for you to travel from shoulder to shoulder. So what I'm going to choose now is flat pad, very light pressure. I'm going to run it at about speed 4, 4.5 at a slow arm speed. So you may have noticed that I actually paused the pad in certain places and then actually touched it with my hand. What I was doing there was to feel for heat, to make sure that I was working effectively but not overheating the surface. And I can see now that I've achieved in a professional cut, I've removed 85% of those scratches. If I look very closely, I can still see some, but as a professional, I always like to opt for doing it as safely as possible, making it so that the average person or even the detailed person cannot see them, rather than overcutting and diminishing the clear coat. So the next step would be, after I cut the paint, it would be polishing it. Let's check that out. All right, so in this case, we're gonna do a 2-step polishing or compounding and polishing step. Next, I'm gonna move on to the orange pad that will remove any haze left behind by the cutting phase. This one's foam. It stays nice and cool I can run it pretty hot, pretty fast, and still remove a little bit of defects while removing any of the buffer marring that I had caused. Oftentimes, less is more if you're doing this at home, so don't put on too much product. And again, I dial it down to 1. And just spread it on the surface. Then for polishing, I like to work around speed 5 and have a little bit of a faster arm speed. Even though we only did a small area, I can see a clear, more high definition look here than even as I look at myself in my reflection over here. Also, I know it's going to be tough to pick up on the camera, but I can see all of those tree brush scratches still remain here, and here you cannot pick that up. The eye cannot see them. So here as I look at myself in my reflection, we really professionally compounded and polished this area to a perfect result.